So a new FDA approved opioid has emerged, and it is said that this is a terrible, terrible decision. And so I'm adding that in there. So I noticed this article, I think maybe yesterday. I was looking through issues having with coronavirus, and the opioid crisis is still going on, believe it or not. It hasn't ended. And so that is another thing that behind the shadows, you have all these other crises that are going on. And I'm going to warn you that in a way that this video may be kind of lengthy because it goes into the opioid situation here. This article came out, and this is really disturbing because before the pandemic, there was an opioid crisis. If you didn't remember, or if you weren't aware, there's an opioid crisis, and that had not really been resolved. Last that I checked, it didn't look like they were able to really do enough to get that under control. And now this right here, it just seems like under the shadows of all of the fight for, racial justice and for this COVID vaccine, there's all these other developments that are happening, and then right under the noses of people, FDA approves this powerful new opioid, which they deem to be a bad decision. And so there are very tight restrictions being placed on distribution and the use of this product, they say. So the FDA commissioner said this because I believe now eyes are looking at this, because we already had the opioid crisis, and this right here is even powerful. From what I've read, it's even more powerful than the opioid drugs out there. And so the Food and Drug Administration, this is their campus in Silver Springs. And so this is Silver Springs, Maryland, as a matter of fact. And so this was October 14th, 2015 that this picture was taken. But this right here, it says the Food and Drug Administration approved a powerful new opioid on a Friday. And so this article was put out in 2018, November 2nd. And so I don't think people realized that this drug was out there. And so I've been seeing some articles surface about that drug, which is called Asuvia. So it's a new drug called Asuvia. It's a tablet. It's smaller than a Tic Tac. So it goes under the tongue, and it is designed to use in the battlefield and in the emergency situations to treat intense acute pain. And so it's supposed to be given to military patients. And so this is a close-up. It says there's controversy over this new approved drug, which is really powerful, as they say. So it's known generally to be given to military people who have chronic pain, I believe. So generically, as it's known as generically as, now I may not be able to pronounce the name because it's like a medical term. So sufentanil, and so sort of like sounds like fentanyl. But from what I was reading about this drug, it's supposed to be even stronger than fentanyl. And it'll go into it in this article. So it's a new formulation of a drug currently given intravenously. So critics say it will be incredibly easy for health workers to pocket and divert the drug to the illicit drug market. And so that's what the worry is. And because it is so small and concentrated, it will likely kill people who overdose on it because it's so tiny, these pills. You're seeing a close-up of it, but it's, if you imagine a Tic Tac, they're smaller than Tic Tacs. And so it's like really, really strong. So this is a dangerous, reckless move, said Dr. Sidney Wolf. He's a senior advisor of Public Citizens Health Research Group. So he questions whether there's need yet for another synthetic opioid when the U.S. is in the throes of an opioid overdose crisis right now. And so I saw this, and some new articles have surfaced about this, so I'm actually going back into time. So this drug was already out there, but I don't think it got as much widespread attention because people were starting to notice that there was that crisis of opioids, but they didn't know that this drug was even more powerful than the ones that are already on the street. So, new synthetic opioids are killing even more people, the CDC says. So, it may have already surfaced on the street. So, FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb defended the decision in the lengthy statement. So, we understand that the concerns about the availability of the high potency formulation of sufentanil and the associated risks, he wrote. And so there are very tight restrictions, they say, being placed on the distribution of the use of the product. So we've learned much from the harmful impact that other oral opioids products can have in the context of the opioid crisis. And so this drug's name is Vesuvia. And so I may not even be pronouncing it right, but it starts with a D. I don't know if the D is silent, but it's Vesuvia. So we've applied the hard lessons as part of the steps we're taking to address the safety concerns of this new drug called Vesuvia. But Dr. Rayford Brown, chair of the FDA Anesthetic and Analgesic Drug Products Advisory Committee and professor of anesthesiology and pediatrics at the University of Kentucky, said that he did not think that the FDA had taken enough care. So I'm very disappointed with the decision of the agency to approve Vesuvia, Brown said in a statement. So this action is inconsistent with the charter of the agency. So as I discussed with representatives of the agency today, neither the lack of efficacy data nor the sponsors' response to safety concerns have been answered yet. So clearly the issue of the safety of the public is not important to the commissioner despite his attempts to obfuscate or obfuscate obfuscate and misdirect. So I'm tongue-tied, sorry. So Brown, who has issued statements critical of FDA in tandem with Public Citizen, said that he was left out of the advisory process for Vesuvia. And so he was not present when his committee voted to recommend approval on October the 12th. And so I believe, if I'm looking at this, it says FDA says the risk of abuse outweighs the safety of this drug. And so that's the thing that they're concerned about. And so they feel that this will kill even more people than have died already from the opioid crisis. This is going to actually speed up the process, if you will, make more of this drug, then you're going to have more people that are going to die from it. And so, which they already have made more of this drug. And so I'm looking down, it says opioids, including prescription opioids and heroin, killed 42,000 people in 2016. The CDC said, so provisional numbers in 2017 indicate they killed 49,000. Opioid overdose deaths are so bad that they have helped lower the U.S. life expectancy. So synthetic opioids alone have killed 27,000 people in 2017. This is from the CDC. So Gottlieb said that the FDA considered the risk carefully, and he noted that opioids require special care, so both because of the overdose epidemic and because Congress has told the FDA to take special consideration into account when approving opioid products. And so they include a plan to control their use called a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, so it can be dispensed to patients for home use and should not be used for more than 72 hours. Now, I'm going to stop. Most times, people are not really following all the directions, especially if they're addicted to drugs. So they're not going to really follow these directions. And so that's what the great concern is, and that'll get on the streets, of course, into the wrong hands if it hasn't already. So it says, and it should only be administered by a healthcare provider using a single dose applicator. Think about it, a single dose applicator. And so it's that strong. So that means it won't be available at retail pharmacies for patients to take home, Gottlieb said. So most times people will use somebody's prescriptions, even if that person is not using them, or they'll get somebody to get the medicine so that they can get it and they can, maybe sell it on the street. So I believe that the unique aspects of dysuvia, including those that make this drug a highly priority for the Pentagon, differentiate this new formula or formulation of fentanyl. And so from other fentanyl products in a way that is consistent with population-based considerations for how it fits into the overall drug armamentarium. And so the military had asked for the drug to be made available, he said, so the FDA has made it a high priority to make sure that soldiers have access to treatments that meet the unique needs of the battlefield, including the intravenous administration is not possible for the treatment of acute pain related to battlefield wounds yet. And so Wolf disagreed. It's a terrible decision, he said. The FDA has been accused of doing too little to control opioid prescriptions before. So a team at Johns Hopkins University researchers, including former FDA official, published what they said is evidence that the FDA did little to stop doctors who were overprescribing the opioids. And so that's how the crisis began to get out of control in the first place. And so this is why they're not that happy about this drug getting out there. And so when I first saw this article, I was noticing they were making more articles about it, because I guess now it is being focused on a little more, and possibly more people are starting to get their hands on it, and so that's what the big problem is. So this right here is the newest article. A new opioid developed for the Pentagon could fill drug shortages wrought by the coronavirus, but the FBI says it's dangerous. And so if you see this little small pill, they said it's even 1,000 times worse than, from what I heard, is, here it is right here. It says it's a highly potent opioid on the market that you've likely never heard of, called dysuvia. This drug is said to be in upwards of 1,000 times more powerful than morphine, and was developed with major funding from the Pentagon for the Pentagon, not from them, but for the Pentagon at the time when the opioid crisis was exploding in the U.S. And so while ISIL RX Pharmaceuticals Chief Medical Officer Pamela Palmer, who led development of dysuvia, says that the drug fills a need both for the military and for hospitals struggling with drug shortages, but critics, including the FBI, warned that it could lead to even more avoidable deaths. And so that's how strong this drug is. And so Look at the Dasuvia right there, and she's talking about it, and I'm not going to turn up the sound so much right now, but you can kind of look at it. But this is who it's supposed to be for: military, a new developed for the Pentagon could fill the drug shortages, and so they're not happy about this at all. So there is video on it. You can see it at your own leisure. But I just thought it was something that maybe nobody really was really talking about because we're so busy talking about all the other developments with coronavirus. And speaking of coronavirus, but before I go, they might even show how small this pill is. It's like small like a Tic Tac. And so I believe she might be the developer or the person that it might be her company that produces the drug because she talks a lot about it. And so she goes into detail. I was looking at it. I don't know, maybe I should turn it up.
Who've used Dasuvia.
One of the problems with approving new opioids.
So, let me see.
1999, in 2017, the rate of overdose deaths from prescription opioids rose 500%. Young and old, rich and poor, communities laid waste by drugs developed in sterile labs with the best of intentions. And now, a powerful new opioid, Dasuvia, 1,000 times more powerful than morphine, has hit the market. Advocates of Dasuvia say it addresses a military need, and that particularly now with the coronavirus pandemic driving shortages in some drugs, it could fill a much-needed niche in hospitals.
So 9 years working with the Department of Defense on this. We actually went to the FDA. They said, we want you to do some more testing, but we did everything that they asked for, and they finally did approve it in November 2018, but certainly nothing in drug development ever occurs quickly, and that was the case with Dasuvia.
Dasuvia was approved in a controversial 10-3 vote by the FDA. But more than a year later, the military has yet to purchase the drug in large quantities. And now, AccelerX is actively pursuing the civilian market.
We're hearing a story that there was a need for this product and that a pharmaceutical company was there to meet the need. I don't buy it. When a drug company gets its medicine approved by the FDA, it doesn't just sit on its hands and hope that doctors will prescribe this product that they invested millions in. They do everything they can to let the medical community know that this new product exists, and they do everything they can to get the medical community to prescribe this new product.
We've started with a relatively small group of sales, and so the doctors who are talking to us are surgeons, emergency room physicians, folks who are really using this drug and seeing an advantage over what they typically use. We're getting tremendously encouraging feedback from physicians who've used Dasuvia.
One of the problems with approving new opioids is public health agencies are trying to get the medical community to prescribe more cautiously. They're trying to get doctors to prescribe less opioids.
We're working with the FDA on a program that's called a REMS, or a Risk Evaluation Mitigation Strategy Program, such that we follow every box of Dasuvia and know that has been shipped to a medically supervised setting, and we survey and look for any source of leaks of Dasuvia outside, and we've not seen any to date.
What we're hearing is that there are safeguards and measures in place that will make it impossible for Dasuvia to have a negative public health impact. We've heard this before. We know that it didn't work. We know that the vast majority of the patients who were getting the products were not the patients who were supposed to be getting these products. So, no, the REMS failed. And I don't believe that the system that's supposedly going to protect the public from Dasuvia is going to work any better than that previous system.
But while that outpatient crisis is occurring and has occurred and will continue to occur to some degree until we can curb it, what's been going on in the hospital that I saw back in 1999 and eventually started this company to solve is a completely different crisis, and it's still ongoing, and that is medication errors. So the whole goal of our company is to try to solve that crisis and not add to the outpatient crisis.
Okay, so that's unrelated. That's just a commercial, and so I'm going to get off of that. Um, so now this makes me go to this article having to do with coronavirus. And I was looking at this article. I'm going to get rid of that window. It's the race to develop a COVID vaccine. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, have they gotten any closer? And there has been several vaccine trials that they're working on. And this right here is by Jane E. Brody out of the New York Times. So judging from the comments I've heard and read, many Americans expect that a vaccine against COVID-19 will soon end the need for masks, social distancing, and enable us to resume our pre-COVID lives. And so I basically read this article early. So basically it goes into, as one neighbor said, citing the administration's warp speed is what it's called. They call it warp speed agenda to rush a vaccine to the market, but they said this could be problematic. And they even attributed it to the 1955 original Salk polio vaccine. It was hastily rolled out from rushing. No good can come to this. And so is what they said. So a mishap in mass producing a vaccine caused polio in 70,000 children, permanently crippling 164, and then it killed 10 at the time. And a similar mishap with coronavirus vaccine could backfire, increasing people's skepticism about the vaccine and vaccine development and their distrust of doctors, Dr. Brett Trojan told them. So everyone wants this silver bullet vaccine that gets them out of the crisis, and intense political and public pressure to release the vaccine before the science is ready and could have devastating negative consequences. So this was a Dr. Trojan. He's a pediatric resident of NYU, Langone Medical Center at the Bellevue Hospital in New York. So keep in mind that if one or more of the vaccines now being tested for COVID-19 should happen to cause any serious illnesses in even a very small percentage of people, there is still no effective cure because it's a virus, and viruses don't have a cure. They can be controlled, but they can't be cured. So experts also worry about unwarranted expectations for the effectiveness of the vaccine. So no vaccine prevents illness in 100% of recipients. Though, as with the flu vaccine, people who are vaccinated may end up with a milder illness. And one of the COVID vaccines testing that they're doing now, being tested, would likely be able to prevent many cases of the serious life-threatening side effects or of actually when you contract COVID, you hear some people have like really mild effects and then other people have real serious effects where it's life-threatening, and so they're looking at vaccines that will keep that from happening. So even a vaccine that is 50% effective in preventing fatal illness might be acceptable, said Outfit. So a professor of pediatrics and director of the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. So it's not enough to know that a candidate vaccine vaccine produces an antibody response, even a vigorous response in susceptible people, or that hundreds of volunteers inoculated with it experience no serious adverse effects. And so they're worried that if you rush this medicine, that even a small percentage of people, if they have side effects that are worse than actual vaccine, then it will make people distrust it, as they already have distrust now because a lot of things are going on. But then to make a medicine that doesn't really work, that just makes matters worse. So under normal circumstances, this process could take years, and that's the real truth. And so, but these are not normal times, so the testing of the potential COVID-19 vaccine is being collapsed into months, which could increase the risk of follow-ups. And so, however, Dr. Francis Collins, director of the National Institute of Health, gave his word that despite being in a hurry to get the effective vaccine to the public, we will not compromise on people's safety. So we don't want to just rush something out there and then you have a lot of more fatalities or permanent illnesses or other things that will develop just from taking these other medications that may not be the ones that actually work. And so a prospective vaccine is first tested on laboratory animal. You normally develop COVID-19, the animal gets infected with the virus, such as mice, and to see if it prevents the disease. This is called a proof of concept. And so that vaccine whether it can work or not on that animal. So if it is followed by a phase 1 and phase 2 trial, and perhaps hundreds of thousands of human volunteers, research look for evidence. If the vaccine is safe to test different vaccines, does doses to find one that is best that results in antibodies that could protect against the virus itself. So excuse me for the fireworks, that's not me, but at least 2 vaccine candidates are already in the stage. And so now comes the big test, phase 3. And so a prospective placebo-controlled trial of tens of thousands of individuals to assess both safety and effectiveness. So for one more of 5 promising COVID vaccine candidates being fast-tracked, this stage is expected to start in July. And so each phase 3 trial will entail 20,000 people who get an experimental vaccine and a controlled placebo group of 10,000 unvaccinated people. So the trials will take place in areas here and abroad as well that are already or expected to be hotspots for COVID infections. But depending on how prevalent the virus is this summer of 2020, where the trials take place, it could take months or even a year to determine how well the vaccine prevents disease. And so the reason why I'm going into this article and talking about it, because I know some people want to know, some people are concerned because they've been reopening things. And so people are worried that they could still get sick because the numbers are spiking in some places. Some people say, oh, we'll just leave it into the hands of whatever their faith is. Some people say that they're going to just use precautionary measures. Some people are relaxed. They feel that maybe it's not as bad as they think it is. And then they say, what I've been hearing on even the news, they've been saying more younger people have been getting infected. And I think it's because what certain people were expressing their feelings that younger people feel more, I guess, the fact that they're young, they have their youth, they're going to live longer, invincible, and they don't really listen to direction of, people who are older, and they may not believe it, and they're not practicing the social distancing, they're not using the mask, and from what I've been seeing in some of the news and some of the articles and looking at some of the things, places around the world, that depending on the circumstance, if you're in like bars, if you're in clubs, or if you're in high numbers of crowds of people, it seems like there's greater chance of contracting it. And if you're unmasked and you're not using precautionary measures, those are the other main factors. Um, and it seems to be what the big issue is. And so it sounds like when it says the race to develop the COVID vaccine, just by I had read the article much earlier, so I didn't want to just keep going on with the article. But from what it was saying, it's going to take a while before they actually develop that real vaccine that works. And they, as I read down in the article, it said they have to have a 70% um, positive um, effectiveness. And so I'm looking at it. It says they expect the vaccine would have to be 70% effective to roll it out for mass use. And then I heard in order for it to even get out to the public, they have to really be careful because they can't just make just anything. So what this is called, the government has called this whole race to get this vaccine called Operation Warp Speed. So factories are currently gearing up to produce tens of millions of doses of the most promising vaccines that they've come up with so far. So that if when one or two are approved as safe and sufficiently effective, enough vaccine can be rolled out without further delay. And to the most of the people who are at higher risk, believe it or not, what I read says the first people that are going to get the vaccine are going to be the people who are working on the front lines. It's going to be the firefighters. It's going to be the long-term care facilities, essential public servants like police officers are going to get the vaccine, food processing people who work in food processing plants who are at higher risk. They're working high-risk jobs. Healthcare workers are the first to get the first doses of the COVID vaccine once it comes out. And they say it should be not until there are hundreds of millions of doses available. That will be in 2021 if all goes well. And so it will be offered then to the general public. So by next year, sometime. So an adequate protection against COVID-19 is expected to require 2 doses of this vaccine. So you can't just have 1 dose, you have to have 2 of them. And so thus, if the entire country were to be immunized by it, they would have to produce more than 600 million doses of vaccine that would have to be manufactured. And so this is what I was looking at, and I don't know if anybody saw this, but it sounds somewhat promising, but then you have people who are not going to be trusting. They feel like maybe something might be wrong with it or could go wrong with it. And so that is the reason why they want to test it, and they want to have people who will be volunteers after they come up with final say-so over the vaccine, if they actually are ready to approve it. It doesn't sound like they won't be really looking at something until next year of 2021. So I thought I would leave you guys with that because there's so much has been going on with the virus, and then now this drug that people are worried that it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. You have uh, one crisis you're trying to resolve, and then you have another one that may have more trouble ahead. And so this one, FDA approves this powerful opioid, which they feel that is a terrible decision. So you're trying to save lives only to see that lives might not be saved because of other crises that are going on. And so this right here is also yet another COVID-19 vaccine They say what it may look like, a cure-all, scientists say. And so I don't know if you saw, even this morning I was looking to say there was an Italian scientist that was thinking there was no data, there's no proof that this is true, but he was saying that before they even find a vaccine or something that might be suitable, because so many people have contracted it, that there's a possible chance that it may lose its infection strength, that it may run out of gas. In other words, the virus may come to a halt because it'll have no one left to infect, and that it will be less deadly. So it sounds like there's going on to that thing of herd immunity. And so since the onset of the corona outbreak, the vaccine has been widely regarded as the best path towards the reopening of society and returning to normalcy. Scientists have worked around the clock to develop a vaccine, even entering late-stage human studies at record speed. And so we know what it's called Operation Warp Speed for the disease that has killed more than 430,000 people worldwide. So yet, despite these Herculean efforts, scientists say a one-time cure-all is unlikely. So data on the close cousins of COVID-19 virus, including seasonal coronaviruses that cause the common cold, suggests COVID-19 vaccine probably won't offer lifelong protection. So sorry to break the bad news, because a lot of these doctors are saying that even if you get the vaccine, they're not even sure that it really will have a continued give you a long immunity to the virus. And so although the research is needed to understand how well and for how long a potential vaccine could work. So it's a problem significant enough to worry. So this was Dr. Anthony Fauci. That's the guy who's always on the news with Donald Trump. He's the doctor that always talks about coronavirus and all of the developments, and he's the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, who has been excited at the chance of developing a vaccine, but hesitant to predict how long it may work. And so I don't want to keep going on, but you can read this at your leisure. And so it just seems like it's basically going to tell you that it's basically what this article is going to say, but I already know, is that there is no cure-all and they're still working on it. And you already heard from the other article that they're still working on a vaccine and it's going to take time and you probably won't see anything happen until next year. They say the end of this year you might start seeing some new developments, which is possible, but it's still going to take time. So it's sort of like trial and error on this whole issue of the coronavirus vaccine. So the other things that I noticed is that I saw they had on Twitter, this guy, he says that there was some type of a cover-up, I guess, with the numbers of people who actually are dying of COVID and the numbers of people who are contracting it. And so there's a lot of fear out there. A lot of people don't really trust the numbers that they've been giving. And so whenever you put in even on your computer or whatever, if you put coronavirus, I guess, updates, I think it even, cases by state, I believe this will bring up the numbers. You can see it here. It says confirmed cases. This looks like 2,294,727, and the deaths is 119,770. That's as of today. At the bottom, you can see as of today the new numbers that are added at the bottom. So you see the darker numbers, you add the numbers that are at the bottom. So it's actually more than the darker number at the top. And so as of today, there's been 289 deaths. As of today, there's been 21,238 confirmed cases. As of today, people who have recovered 18,065. The total up here saying from before that one is saying 640,198, and you add the 18,065 to that. So some people feel this is just in the U.S. That's what I'm looking at. If you want to look at worldwide, it's going to be a greater, larger number. And so it just basically adds to worldwide. And so that's usually how I look at it. But I believe there is people feeling that there may be some conspiracies because going on the internet, and then also some people feel like there might be not conspiracies, maybe that people are off on the numbers and that there are newly infected people, or some people have not been reporting. Then you have some people who maybe they're walking around, they're super spreaders, or they're asymptomatic and they haven't been tested yet. So it's a developing story. It's sad, but it's true. But anyway, I'm gonna let this video go. What do you think about this? This drug right here shouldn't even be. If we already have that crisis, and then on top of that crisis, we have this crisis right here, the race to find a vaccine, which sounds like it's going to take quite a bit of time. They're already reopening places. Today they opened nail shops, they opened beauty shops or barber shops in some places, and some other stores, gyms have opened. So I don't know how this is gonna. So what it honestly looks like to me is that they're really trying to open things up because the economy is so bad, and a lot of people had lost jobs. There's high numbers of unemployment, and some people would say you gotta start somewhere, but then other people are saying that we need more, stimulus for people who can't just go back to work. Because believe it or not, even though they're opening all these regular businesses, some schools, if not all of the schools, are open because they haven't worked out how they're going to make the schools safe, the teachers safe. There's some kids that are not going to be able to social distance because they just can't comprehend that. And then there's these sicknesses that the kids are getting. And I heard in some news feeds that some of the sicknesses that the kids are getting, they may be getting it from other kids. It's day camps. And day camps are maybe less hours, but they act as sort of like, a fun place to go for kids. They probably have, I don't know how many kids are enrolled in those type of, day camps. In other places, I guess it depends on the numbers of people. That if the numbers of the virus is low, they can open certain things, businesses. But here in Los Angeles, there's no schools that are open because of the worry of people getting infected, and the numbers are higher here of people that are contracting the virus, and it's still going up. And so the question is, how do you make teachers and kids safe, especially when they're little kids, that are like preschool or kindergarten? They really don't understand. It's very scary, and then parents may be scared. They might even decide to pull their kids out and homeschool them for fear that their kids will get sick, bring home an illness. So it's a lot. It just seems like it's a lot to consider because of all of this. You wonder, I feel for the parents and the teachers, the fellow teachers, and other people that, have had the worry of how do we stay safe? How do you stay safe in a time like this? You're worried, you don't want to contract the virus, you don't want to give the virus, and some people get sick, they don't even know they're sick. So we shall see how this all turns out. They're opening things, and some people are really not happy about all of these places opening because they feel like the people who are more vulnerable don't have a choice, and they're more concerned about money than people's lives. And so it's like gambling on people's lives. And so that's the thing. And then you have police, the developments with police brutalities that people have been complaining so much about. It's really happened long before this pandemic. And so you're just able to see it on camera a lot vividly. And so it's just really scary times we're living in. So with having this said all this, I'm going to let this video go until another video, because the other crises before I let this video go is homelessness. And that's another crisis that's also been going on, is that there's a moratorium that basically is halting the rents and increase of homelessness and evictions. It's halted those, but it's soon to end. And in some places it has started to come to a close. Started March, April, and then May, and it was supposed to end in June. They were supposed to extend another month or two. But what happens when that ends? There's going to be, we already said before the pandemic, there was this homeless crisis. So it's a crisis on top of a crisis. So you're going to have even more homeless people. These are not people who are mentally ill or people who have drug problems per se. These are people who they simply couldn't pay the rent. And they lost their jobs, which is legitimate now because of the coronavirus. A lot of the businesses had closed because of the fear of the spread of this, and now they're reopening, and they're starting to already see spikes. And some places that reopened had to reclose. So only time will tell where this all will lead. And so thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Antoinette 70. You take care. Be safe.